I'd now like to introduce Caleb Schaefer, the Portland Harbor team lead for the Environmental Protection Agency, and he will be giving some general updates on the site and different project areas. I'll note that Caleb will be in one of the breakout rooms from the 7 to 8 p.m. portion. So please hold your questions, and you can put them in the chat, members, if you'd like, but they won't be addressed until the 7 to 8 p.m. portion. Caleb, to you.
Great. Thank you, Lucia, and thank you everyone tonight for being here. It's good to see you all. So in terms of updates from EPA, first I'd just like to announce, we were talking about this in the beginning, that as many folks have heard, we have a new regional administrator in Region 10, Casey Sixkiller. Casey joined Region 10 as our new regional administrator just last month, so he is still very new and kind of settling into his role and learning a lot about our direct work. But he brings 2 decades of experience working at the federal, tribal, and local levels to EPA Region 10. So we're excited about his energy and what he's bringing to Region 10. He's also an enrolled citizen of the Cherokee Nation. We do plan to invite him to come to an upcoming Portland Harbor collaborative meeting after he's had a chance to settle in and have an opportunity to connect with all of you and speak and share his thoughts and perspective here as well. The next set of updates are getting into specific project areas. So the first is Willamette Cove Working Group. So if you recall, Oregon Department of State Lands will be temporarily closing Willamette Cove from June 15th through September 5th. And so the Willamette In-Water Remedial Design Group can complete their sampling work in the Willamette Cove project area as part of this Portland Harbor Superfund cleanup process. So we will place a map of that closure area in the chat so folks have access to it. We'll also put a link to the Willamette Cove cleanup project website. So if any folks have questions, they can look at that as well. We also want to let folks know about the Willamette Cove Environmental Field Day event, and that's happening on Saturday, June 25th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The Willamette Cove Working Group had the idea for this event, and the City of Portland, Oregon Department of State Lands, Port of Portland, Metro, Portland Harbor Community Coalition, Blueprint Foundation, and Human Access Project are all sponsoring this event. And at this event, you'll be able to learn about cleanup of the soil and river contamination at Willamette Cove. There'll be hands-on activities, there'll be sampling demonstrations, opportunity for conversations with environmental professionals and community members. So we will put a link to where you can RSVP to that environmental field day and encourage folks that are interested to participate. With regards to the upland Willamette Cove work, upland sampling under oversight of DEQ will be underway during the June 25th community event. And that field staff will be also available at the community event to answer any questions and provide demonstrations of their sampling work, including which will be ISM, incremental sampling methodology, the same type of sampling that folks may be familiar with that we did at Cathedral Park at the beach there. If you do want to join the Willamette Cove Working Group, it is part of the collaborative, and you can send a note in the chat, or you can also contact Jessica Terlikowski with the City of Portland, and we will put Jessica's email in the chat so folks have it to contact her. The next project area in terms of an update is Cathedral Park. So remedial design does continue to progress at Cathedral Park, and we still are pursuing all options for continued remedial design once we finish up the current phase of remedial design. In terms of where we're at in that phase, we're receiving the last of our analytical results back now, and we'll be publishing those results this fall. We do have as many know, our Cathedral Park project area working group. This is also part of the collaborative, and the next meeting will occur sometime in late July, and it is open to everyone. So we will put a note, please put a note in the chat rather, or you can also contact Laura Knudsen if you're interested in joining, and we'll put her info in the chat as well if you're interested in joining that work group. The next set of updates is with regards to site-wide work. So the first is our programmatic institutional control implementation and assurance plan. So that, I know that's a mouthful. It's enduringly referred to as the PICI app. And the PICI app, just to remind folks, it's a plan that outlines all the things that are going to be put in place to reduce people's exposure to contamination and to protect the remedy. So these are things like activity and use limitations, things like fish advisories, zoning restrictions, protections essentially that we're putting in place. And that plan is continuing to be finalized. EPA has a revised draft from the city and the state who authored that plan, and we're currently reviewing that plan. We hope to have a final version of it, and once we do, we'll make sure and share it publicly, and that'll be sometime this fall. The second area of site work we have an update on is the upriver reach dioxin furan work. So just to remind folks, EPA and DEQ sampled for dioxin and furans in the upriver reach, and that area of the river is from about the Selwood Bridge to Willamette Falls, upriver of the Superfund site. And the intention of that effort was to gather additional information about the background concentrations of dioxins and furans in the upriver reach. DEQ completed that work in summer of 2021, and validated results are anticipated in summer of 2022. So we should probably see that in the next month or so. And so we will have that be a data report. We will plan to prepare a fact sheet to help explain that data report and interpret it and describe the work to date and the general conclusions. But in terms of just some preliminary conclusions that we do have from that work, we found that concentrations of dioxins and furans in the upriver reach are generally, the upriver reach rather, is generally free of dioxin and furan contamination. It's either very low or not detected at all. And this was really good news because this area upriver of the site, we didn't want to see dioxin and furan contamination that could move downstream into the Superfund site after it's cleaned up. So overall, that's very good news. And it also means that the conditions in the upriver reach are very close to our long-term cleanup levels for the Superfund site. So we anticipate being able to achieve those levels. Based on our preliminary analysis of the data to date for this sampling effort, we don't anticipate any significant changes to the long-term cleanup goals for this site for dioxin and furans. EPA does continue to evaluate the data, and we will make sure to keep everyone closely updated. The fourth update is on just general meetings that we're having with responsible parties and designers within the site. So, we continue to coordinate with performing parties for remedial design at each project area on a daily basis. So we're very active, involved with working with performing parties and completing remedial designs. We're additionally also continuing to plan for remedial action with performing parties via it's the remedial action work group. And we've talked about that a little bit in the past here. The next meeting of that work group is scheduled for tomorrow. And the purpose of that work group is to seamlessly transition and plan for remedial action and kind of get the pieces in place for the enforcement instrument that will oversee that, the consent decree. And so these discussions are settlement confidential because they relate to the consent decree, the enforcement document for remedial action, the actual cleanup. But we are providing general updates at the collaborative meeting. And lastly, even though EPA is not part of the potentially responsible party group working to allocate costs for the cleanup, what we call the allocation group, we are tracking their work. We are regularly coordinating with them and have monthly meetings with them as well, and they're continuing. So a lot of meetings, a lot of work with parties to move these remedial designs forward within the Portland Harbor. Lastly, just want to pitch our Portland Harbor story map again. So quarterly updates are now reflected in the story map per our maintenance plan that we put in place for that story map. We'll put a link to that story map in the chat, and we just encourage folks to keep sharing and using this tool. It's intended to be dynamic, so any thoughts, any inputs, we welcome and encourage them. So encourage folks to take a look at that and share any additional thoughts you have. So that concludes the EPA updates. I'll turn it back over to Lucia.
Thanks so much, Caleb. And if you were left wondering about anything of all the topics Caleb covered or have any questions for Caleb, please join him in the 7 to 8 p.m. breakout rooms.